India-US signed terms for first phase of trade deal. New Delhi and Washington pursue trade liberalization. We get you details on that. IAF jet GPS spoofed in Myanmar. Some reports suggest that the GPS spoofing could be another form of weapon of choice in the 21st century. Impact on new age warfare. We come back and talk more on this. Trump administration freezes $2.2 billion in funding to Harvard University, even as clamor grows for what should be the way forward between Trump and universities in America. India's retail inflation eases to a 67-month low of 3.34% in March over 5 years. This has been the lowest. Will this mean another rate cut going forward? RBI watching this very closely. As concert ticket prices saw more than half of Coachella's attendees are buying tickets through payment plans. What does this mean? We decode on India Global. In a move that may very well be the beginning of a new chapter in global trade diplomacy, India and the US have signed the terms of reference for the first phase of the long-awaited trade pact. The deal, that is still in early stages, aims to boost bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. That's the goal between India and US. Negotiators will begin virtual talks this month, and there's a key in-person round that's scheduled for next month. President Trump, once critical of India's trade policies, did announce a 90-day pause on new tariff hikes for partners like India. Simultaneously, he ramped up pressure on China. With trade deficits, diplomatic stakes and $500 billion on the line, this is more than just a deal. What does this mean in terms of the trade pact is something that we are going to watch going forward. All right, moving on, there has been a rather dramatic and very strange twist in India's humanitarian mission to quake-struck Myanmar. An Indian Air Force C-130J Hercules carrying critical relief supplies reportedly faced a chilling threat in the skies. Many are claiming it to be GPS spoofing. We still are awaiting what really happened. But we are talking about this because could this be new age warfare? We decode that. On 29th of March, the aircraft encountered navigational anomalies over southern Myanmar, and the crew acted fast, switching to backup systems, avoided disaster. Now, according to some reports, the skies were thick with interference, red zones of spoofing activity lighting up the map. Experts opined that the pattern possibly could mean targeted jamming. Again, there is no final official word on this, but could this be the way forward? Where did it come from? Is it about covert intelligence installations? IAF confirmed the anomaly, raised a pressing question: who is targeting peace missions with weapons of electronic warfare? The skies over Myanmar are no longer just turbulent, they're allegedly contested. And somewhere someone may be testing the limits of peace as well through precision deception, which is why the big questions that we're asking on India Global today. First up, which is that was IAF jet GPS spoofed over Myanmar? Next question. Are foreign powers testing military-grade spoofing technology, something that could really change the way how relief operations happen going forward? The next question I'm asking on India Global today: how vulnerable are military and civilian aircrafts when it comes to digital deception? And lastly, is GPS spoofing becoming the stealth weapon of 21st century? As I said, is this now new age warfare that we are seeing here? With Wing Commander Abhishek Mativan joining me on the show, along with Bidayak Das, who's a Southeast Asia expert. Wing Commander Abhishek, let me start by asking you, there are too many questions that are up in the air, and some would say very disturbing questions, isn't it?
Absolutely nothing can be discounted, and the kind of geopolitical situation that prevails in South Asia and, in fact, around the world at present. Testing and checking up of latest technology is an ongoing process, and particularly in a scenario like ours, wherein we have adversaries on the northern front, on the western front, and now with the emerging situation on the eastern front as well. So you can't discount the fact of deliberate spoofing. However, the official statement that has come out from the Air Force is that the IAF crew are well capable of handling such unavailability while ensuring safety of the flight and achievement of the designated tasks or missions.
Okay.
Spoofing the GPS, actually, what it leads to is it actually leads to confusion about the exact position of the aircraft in the air. So,
Indeed.
which consequently creates a confusion on the onboard systems, making the ascertaining of the right position of the aircraft in the air difficult for the aircrew. However,
That's a
it
very
doesn't
important point.
yeah, yeah. However, in case of these humanitarian aids where transport aircraft are involved, there are backup systems in place. In fact, the crew have a dedicated navigator on board, consists
Yes.
of a navigator on board. So, in real terms, it won't lead to a major fiasco. But yes, in case of combat missions or something on those lines,
Okay, that's a very
could
important
really
point
keep.
you made. Let me quickly get in Bidhek Das as well on it, that, which is that this may be a relief op. The damage would have been were contained, limited. But what happens if it's not a relief operation? Questions that we are asking become that much more significant in combat situations, Bidhek Das. Unmute yourself, sir.
Sorry. Thank you. And I said I totally agree with the wing commander that you cannot discount anything, specially in the eastern theater here, in the eastern frontier, the way things have unfolded in the last not 4 years after the coup, but even before that. There's been a level of sophistication that you would not believe. I've spent a lot of time in Myanmar and I've seen the kind of sophistication that I'm not talking about the state here, the military junta has also a level of sophistication that we actually cannot imagine, which is why they're still sustaining themselves. And the non-state actors that is all over Myanmar. If you look from the top tip, the north, right down to the east, where is the Thailand border, you have all these groups spread out, and all of them are highly capable today of using both electromagnetic and electronic warfare to, and which they are actually doing insofar as their battle is concerned with the military junta, their common enemy inside Myanmar. But just coming back to what happened with the spoofing thing that's
Yes.
going on, and the Indian Air Force has clarified. There was a
Yes.
notum also from the authorities in Mandalay. And given the situation that day on the 28th of March, the earthquake, 7.7 magnitude, the entire support system had collapsed, the ATS had
Yes.
collapsed. So I think we are reading too much into what
Okay.
happened if there was actually an intentional spoofing. But you never know what's happening in Myanmar because,
These are
like the wing
disturbing
commander,
questions because they are disturbing times that we are
absolutely,
in. And
absolutely.
Wing Commander Datiman, which brings me to ask you that what are the learnings from this specific instance? Because at the end of the day, that is most important, so that similar situations, if they arise not in relief operations time, then the outcomes remain under control.
Just for the information of our viewers, this is not the first time we have faced this kind of a situation. In fact, during operations, going as far back as Op Vijay, during Kargil times, we faced similar kind of problems in contested airspace while the Operation Safed Sagar was on. The IAF aircrafts were able to detect interference with the GPS signals, and so it doesn't come as something very new to the IAF. We had learnt our lessons then, and as far as the aircrew and the machines go, there are backup systems to bank, and consequently the aircrew are always on their toes to deal with such kind of an eventuality, ultimately the mission success being the key.
Indeed. Vidhayak Das, the fact you mentioned non-state actors, especially in a zone as hotly contested, as deeply troublesome as Myanmar is, what happens in situations like this when there are too many non-state actors and the state apparatus is weak and incapable of handling situations?
So that's where the danger is, right? Because you have a situation where there is an earthquake, there has to be relief going in, different countries are actually going in with the relief, and you don't know what's happening in the airspace. Which the different actors, what are they really sort of in combat? Because if you've read the news, the Burmese news essentially a day after the earthquake, they all were reporting about airstrikes by the military junta, and there were also counter strikes from different groups, including the PDF. And like I've mentioned, so like you've said, it's very, very deep. In fact, we really don't know how deep it is, because there is also a situation we have in the other neighborhood, Bangladesh, and there are lots of experiments going on over there. We have seen the TB2 drones that have been flying around our borders, Meghalaya, Tripura, then the Siliguri corridor, and that's been of huge concern, and there are great security implications because of that. Therefore, the gut feeling I have here is, I'm not pointing a finger now at China immediately, because China has a stake, they're bringing in the relief, but there could be other actors. Definitely the ISI could have a plan of its own, that this is a time that we can experiment, and this situation gives us the right kind of opportunity to do some experiments and to see whether we can cause disruptions. I think this is how I would look at the situation insofar as where it could go. But in the non-state actors, I just want to mention this to you. Just want to quickly mention this to you. The non-state actors, which are essentially they are the ethnic armed organizations of Myanmar. They are extremely powerful. The WA, which are essentially the Chinese, they have 50,000 troops, and they have sophistication which are coming from China, trained by China, and these level of sophistication are just not electromagnetic. They are also autonomous electronic warfare systems they've built in place.
All right, so I'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on India Global today on a story that has many implications. The bottom line, viewers, really is that when it comes to new age warfare, it's not just going to be about tanks or AK-47s or missile guns. It's going to be about technology, a domain that can have far-reaching implications, because that's how the new age warfare is set to be designed going forward. And what this instance shows is that when technology can be usurped, it can have far-reaching, devastating consequences, and especially and more so when non-state actors operating across geographies, across boundaries are involved. That is one thing to watch out for when it comes to governments around the world. On that note, we slip into a very short break. We'll come back with more news on the other side. Stay with us.
When I woke up, they said, "Alyssa, you've got leukemia." We found out that the chemo wasn't working. So at that point, it was like, I'm gonna die. My consultant was looking for these clinical trials, and she found this one at Great Ormond Street. I'm cancer-free now.
Curing Alyssa was a world first, but cancer is still the biggest killer of children in the UK. Will you help us do more? Search Gosh Care to give £3 a month and help build a new children's cancer centre at Great Ormond Street Hospital. a home for breakthrough research with world-class facilities to help beat cancer for more children. Together, with your kind support, we can help save lives and transform children's cancer care for decades to come. Text CARE to 70125 to give £3 a month and help build our new Children's Cancer Centre. Together, we can beat cancer for more children.
Quickly remove unwanted hairs with the stylish and discreet New You Body and Face Trimmer from JML. Your pain-free way to tackle any unwanted hairs that pop out of nowhere. The wide dual head design and floating heads adjust to the curves of your skin. Gentle enough to use on your upper lip, knees and ankles, and even your bikini line. No nicks, cuts or irritation. Remove unwanted hairs anytime, anywhere with the New You Body and Face Trimmer. Only $19.99 from Asda, Boots, Morrison's, Tesco and jmldirect.com.
We all know animals have feelings. They depend on kindness, just like you and me. So imagine how they feel when they're beaten, starved, and unloved. Every minute, the RSPCA is called on to save animals in physical agony and mental torment. It's unbearable to see the pain in their eyes. We refuse to give up on them, but to rescue them from a life of fear, we urgently need animal lovers like you to donate today. Please call 0800 121 4260 or text KIND to 84903 to give £2 a month to the RSPCA. Your gift will help fund more life-saving rescues, more emergency treatment, and more gentle rehabilitation. Every month, you'll be helping to keep animals free from pain and sadness, so they can find the comfort and joy they deserve. Right now, across the country, thousands are suffering deliberate harm. But together, we can show animals what kindness feels like. Together, we can rescue them. So please, call 0800 121 4260, text KIND to 84903, or visit our website to start your monthly donation today. Thank you.
His senior most disciple to teach me.
Big Tech is on trial, and at the center of it all is Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, defending the empire he built in the last decade. On the stand in a Washington court, Zuckerberg pushed ahead against explosive allegations from the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, that claimed that Meta's acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp about a decade ago were not innovation but domination. If the FTC succeeds, it could dismantle Meta's crown jewels and half of its ad revenues. Instagram alone is forecasted to earn $37 billion this year. Zuckerberg argued the landscape has changed. TikTok, YouTube, Apple, they're the real rivals now, Zuckerberg argued. But the FTC says Meta still controls the spaces where we connect with friends and family, and that control is illegal. As Trump's White House eyes big tech, the future of Meta and whole of digital communication hangs in balance. We decode what this could mean for the future of big tech in the US and the ongoing fight between Trump and big tech. Joining me is Ivan Mehta, who's a tech reporter, as well as Senthil Nagam, who's the founder of Munim AI. Let me start with you, Mr. Mehta, which is that as things stand right now, this could be a landmark trial and a landmark case really that could decide which way big tech goes from here on, not just in the US, but around the world.
Definitely, it's a big trial to watch. We don't know what would be Trump's strategy during this this phase about big tech. The case, as we remember, the file by FTC was filed when Trump was last in power. So lot has changed between that. The judge also rejected the case once, and FTC had to refile the case. So that's a very important precedent here in the case. But there is the other precedent that Google was told to break up and initially told to divest Chrome and some of the other products last year. So there is precedent for big tech being broken up in the US now as well.
No, indeed, there is a precedent, and this would also be a precedent, most certainly for the EU, which has been fighting against the big tech for over a decade, much before the US. But Senthil, let me ask you this in terms of the impact this would have industry-wise. You know, the industry-wide implications of this trial, this case. What do you think could that be?
I have a very different opinion. Okay, there are a couple of this so-called FTC case started somewhere around 2020. Okay, social media era is over, AI era has started. Okay, and luckily because of the explosion on XR or VR space, Meta had the GPUs and they have trained a lot of models and they have open sourced it. So that is where we are going towards. What is changing is Chinese control over TikTok was a big issue. The sale has not yet happened. Who will acquire it? So who has more data or training are the ones who will lead this space. Even if somebody is going to split it, either has to become a separate company, will it be viable? Ad revenue for Google is going down, Apple is struggling. If Meta also will lose revenues initially, that's where it goes into play. Okay, so building another behemoth will not serve any purpose. So who will buy TikTok? Let's start with that part. Second part, model. See, they have nearly 4 billion people's data, especially with WhatsApp and Insta and Facebook. Facebook is not a dominant platform at all. No teenagers are there in that platform. That platform is kind of slowly dying. So they can show all the stats to show, hey, this is not the case. Insta is what is generating more revenue. WhatsApp is again more outside America is what it does. And it's not a huge dollar revenue on WhatsApp per se. So this is how that will go. So who has more training data? Let's take example of what X did. Okay, so Elon Musk, he built X, he built an AI company, and he got X sold to AI company at a huge valuation.
Right.
This is an inversion which is happening.
Yes.
So who owns the AI, who owns the past data is what will dominate.
Right.
If the past company gets all the data and they have their AI, they are going to win. A standalone social media company, that market is gone. There is no new market for it.
Okay.
I expect Trump to kind of facilitate it. Already they're doing Doge. So FTC, everything, they will have more cuts on it. It's more of a notional thing which is happening. Europe...
Let's take this one by one. Let's take this one by one. Not everything has to be said in one answer. Okay, let's take this one by one. Mr. Mehta, you know, the beauty of a discussion is that there are two sides that are being discussed, and that's exactly what's happening here. But to a large extent, you know, this case is also about a personal battle is a very strong word, but a personal conviction of the president, isn't it? Because it started in his previous term. He wants to continue it in this term. What, according to you, are the objectives of the FTC? Because the case is not watertight, but they're just relying on those bunch of emails where, you know, a decade ago where Mark Zuckerberg had said that these are small companies and so on and so forth, and the case essentially is just that. But what, according to you, are the FTC's objectives from this, from a messaging point of view, not just from an outcome point of view?
I think they want to prove that there are monopolies in play which they want to break. Now, it's very hard for them to prove that Meta is a monopoly in the personal social networking space, which is a key word here. And like Senthil said, the game is about AI from Meta's side, because they will argue that, you know, look, when you filed the case, we were pretty much Facebook. Now we are Meta, so we are doing a lot of things. So we are not just a social networking play, and we are not just the dominant company. If you look at us as a company, we are not just a social media company. So FTC would want to prove that, hey, this is still a social media company, and there is tangible harm if TikTok gets sold or banned, and tangible benefit for Meta. And it would also want to prove that if anything changes in Instagram or WhatsApp, that is detrimental to users as well.
Okay, Senthil, very quickly, you have a different opinion, and this case could actually go either way. But since it's a watershed moment in the US for big tech, what, according to you, could be the larger takeaways, let's say for EU, let's say for India, which are also dealing with big tech and data in a big way?
Okay, so like social media era is over, AI has taken over. The third part would be we would have either an XR or a VR device. Apple needs a successor for their iPhone. They are struggling. VR, I think Meta was ahead of in that space, and Google is trying. There are three companies. America wants whatever the next technology, America wants to dominate that. That is the whole purpose. They don't want to break any monopoly what they have. And currently, Europe is in a big trouble because maybe NATO, something else will trigger for them. Earlier, they used to fine EU will fine either Apple or Google $1 billion fine. It was very easy during Biden period. Trump is a different ball game, and it will work differently for them. I don't expect any breakup happening. And I don't expect even Europe to take any serious actions at this point of time. This is not going to work for them. We have to see what will happen in 2-3 years when a new technology, new domain coming into play. Right, and a lot more job losses will happen. A lot of something else has to change.
2-3 years is like decades when it comes to technology, isn't it?
No, we may announce the AGI later this year. So that's the whole part. Who is going to announce first?
Yeah, okay, so we'll leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on a story that has far-reaching implications for everyone, including the viewers watching this. And on that note, I'm going to slip into a break, come back and talk more about a story that, in fact, is causing ripples around the world, which is Donald Trump taking on the biggest universities in the US. Stay with me. We come back with that story. You've been nominated several times for the Grammys, but what it's been like the last 25 years? Because, you know, music is also a fairly competitive field. It's of course, the search to find your identity is there. You want to do that. You want to probably isolate yourself from the noise. But at the end of the day, the arts as a field is also a very competitive space, isn't it?
I didn't go into music to become an artist. I'd never imagined I'd make an album. That wasn't why I went into music. I went to music to sing. You know what I would do when I started singing? I became a music beggar. I truly would. I heard, for the very first time, I heard Pandit Jasraj sing. And I heard him, I was sitting in the first row because I was a patron of this arts organization. I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard Hindustani music. I'd been in Brazilian, Karnataka, all of that, but never much with Hindustani. I sat in the first row, and then he started singing. And then for the next 4 hours or 3 hours that he sang, I must have cried through the entire concert of his because it was so beautiful, so magical. And in my mind, I said to myself, I want to learn from him. And, like this, but of course, most of these people take students when you're 5 and they live with them and they travel with them and do all of this. But the universe has a way of working. And I've got to tell you a very wonderful story about Pandit Jasraj, who I wanted to learn from, but I didn't know him. And I went to a concert of his after that again. Somebody calls me up. This is a week or two after I'd had this incredible experience, and I'm telling God or the divine, I want to learn music this way. I want to experience music where this combination of bhakti and notes come together. This is what's going through my head. I'm praying. I don't know quite how I'm doing it. A friend of mine randomly calls me up and he says, 2 weeks later, and he says, and this is so bizarre, the coincidence, that I can't call it a coincidence, I call it universal synchronicity. He says, oh, I'm a single guy, and I'm going to have Pandit Jasraj to my house for dinner tomorrow. But they have just called me up and given me a list of dietary requirements for him, which I cannot meet because I'm a single guy. I was going to order Chinese food, but he doesn't eat onions, he doesn't eat garlic, he doesn't eat anything. I don't know what to do. Do you think we can move the dinner to your house? And, because you've got cooks and stuff, so maybe you can do it. I said, of course, this is the guy I've been dying to meet. Yeah. So this is how I met Pandit Jasraj, and then I begged him to teach me. And I met all these teachers. So for me, this journey of finding music was never about performing. And when Pandit Jasraj gave me his senior most disciple to teach me, Pandit Girish Vazalwar, who passed away, I would sing for 10 hours a day.
A seismic showdown is shaking the very pillars of American education. President Trump has frozen us $2.2 billion in federal funding to Harvard University after the Ivy League college refused to comply with Trump demands. Trump's administration accused Harvard of fostering a troubling entitlement mindset and demanded reforms, from admission overhauls to monitoring campus activism. At the heart of it all is free speech, civil rights, and academic independence. And where do you draw the line is the key question. But Harvard's president, Alan Garber, stood defiant. The backlash was swift. In a powerful show of support, Barack Obama, former president, praised Harvard for setting an example in the face of what he called, quote-unquote, unlawful attempt to stifle academic freedom. Harvard has drawn its line in the sand. The question now remains, who will follow the college next? And that's exactly why this is now the big question that I'm asking on this Trump versus Harvard debate. First up, can universities remain truly independent while relying on federal funding? On one hand, you want federal funding. On the other hand, you want to have complete freedom. Is academic freedom under threat when funds are tied to ideological demands? There will be different presidents, different administrations, different thoughts. Should funding be always tied to that? Next up, are student protests a sign of healthy debate, or is it disruption to learning? And who decides that, and where is that fine line? Lastly, boundaries of freedom of speech on campuses. How does one decide that? Because that is really at the heart of why this has happened. Of course, the anti-Semitism that one saw on these Ivy League colleges was gruesome, was abhorring, but those were specific instances. Can that be the cause for making sweeping changes? Cornell William joins me to talk more on that, and so does Sophie Fullerton. It's good to have both of you on the broadcast. And sir, let me start with you, Mr. Cornell, which is that at the end of the day, there are no right answers in this, because no two colleges may have the same opinion when it comes to how much should it rely on federal funding and how much should it stand up for what the college administration believes is the right thing.
So first of all, let me say thank you for having me this morning. And I just want to note here that it is true, each college, each university has to make its own decision with respect to federal funding. However, the federal government does not get to violate the First Amendment once it has allocated the federal funding, which is to say Harvard, like a great many universities, applies for federal funding, applies for federal grants, and then based upon its qualifications, it receives those grants. Once the grants are administered, once the grants are awarded, the government does not get to then micromanage Harvard or any other college or university and take away those funds. And so what we have here is the government literally holding hostage, if you will, as a
But is it illegal, sir? Is it illegal? That's my question.
It is illegal. It is absolutely illegal. How so? It is illegal when the government says to Harvard that you must allow us to micromanage your faculty, micromanage your student, micromanage your staff, ask all of your staff, ask your students, ask your faculty, what are your political opinions? That violates the First Amendment.
Okay.
It's unlawful.
Okay, it's unlawful. Sophie, you want to come in there in terms of where can administrations draw the line, and is it really walking on eggshells here? Because, you know, could this end up in courts like so many of the other Trump administration decisions?
Well, I first want to say that this is straight out of the autocratic handbook. We've seen other countries that are in a democratic backsliding experience this type of assault on higher education. And I want to bring up the example of Viktor Orban, who is pretty chummy with Trump. So when Viktor Orban was really encroaching on democratic erosion within Hungary, he started to attack higher institutions. This is what Trump is doing. And the overall idea is to push an ideological overreach in institutions that have really fostered free think and free speech for anybody that's been able to grace their campuses.
Okay. So all I can say before I continue this is that it would not be great to compare Harvard universities to others, whether it is Hungary or any other college or any other campus. I know the comparison is for the leaders, but at the end of the day, it is the campus and the college that we are talking about. Having said that, the other side is, you know, Mr. Cornell, what the administration has been saying at the end of the day, that they are well within their rights to be able to do so, Because at the end of the day, if you want federal funding, you've got to comply. And there are universities which have done so. So why should Harvard be an exception?
Let's be very clear here. So the Trump administration is essentially saying that it can suspend federal funding based upon two laws. Essentially, one law, Title VI, which says you can't discriminate in the use of federal funds. The federal government has not gone to court and sued Harvard for discrimination. It has not proven discrimination before a judge or a jury. It is simply alleged discrimination. And so in the absence of any evidence that we have violated Title VI, which, note this, is a civil rights law. In the absence of that, you don't get to suspend, as in put on hold, $2.2 billion. In addition,
but Harvard is a rich university, sir. It's got $53 billion in endowment funds. It's a rich university.
It is a rich university, but that money goes to support research in terms of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, sending teachers in communities. So when you lose $2 billion, any corporation, any country, any company that loses $2 billion, it has an impact on real people. So it's not like we can simply spend money to make up for money that we already were awarded and earned.
Sophie, Columbia University has agreed to the demands of Trump administration, setting the tone really that other universities may follow suit. So I want to ask you the same question, which is that why should a specific university be an exception when it comes to law of the land?
So you mentioned earlier that it's really up to the university's discretion, and that's what we saw with Columbia. So Columbia has really been the outlier in this case with how they've chosen to comply to Trump's demands. I want to mention one of the reasons why Trump is going after these universities is the argument of anti-Semitism on these campuses. And Columbia has really kind of been ground zero for this. The example I want to bring up is yesterday, the administration attacked another student at Columbia University under the argument that it was due to anti-Semitic reasons. Well, then we just saw a 60 Minutes film documentary on him where he's basically calling out anti-Semitism on campus. So what I'm trying to get at is, even though this administration is arguing they're targeting these universities for specific reasons, the goalposts keep moving. So now it's anti-Semitism, but the next day it's going to be because you're speaking out against the Trump administration, and the goalposts will continue to move as this administration continues to move on.
Okay, so the fact is that the world saw some of those anti-Semitic and anti-Semitism that happened on these campuses. And that really is at the heart of this issue, isn't it? Freedom of speech is important, right to voice your opinions, right to be able to protest in a civilized manner. All of that makes complete sense, and that's what these universities have as cherished values. But Mr. Cornell, the fact is that some of those protests crossed all lines, didn't they? Raising some of these valid issues.
Absolutely. And let me say here, as a civil rights lawyer who once worked for the Department of Justice, bringing cases against people who engaged in discrimination, as a former president and CEO of the NAACP, which was an organization founded by African Americans and Jewish people, I take anti-Semitism extraordinarily seriously, okay? But let's be very clear here. Where you have students who destroy property, engage in vandalism, impede and limit the right of others to speak, those students should be firmly and fairly held accountable. What does not work is when you go from addressing real instances of anti-Semitism to limiting the free speech, the First Amendment rights of universities. You don't help one First Amendment harm by creating a second First Amendment harm. That is deeply problematic. No one is protected by this. And the reason we know that the Trump administration is not particularly serious about addressing anti-Semitism is because when you look at the last letter which was sent to Harvard, they barely mention anti-Semitism in terms of their demands. What they demand first and foremost is to micromanage Harvard. That is not addressing the problem.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on India Global. This is an issue that impacts the world because These are Ivy League colleges where the world wants to go and study. And bottom line, really, viewers, is just that these Ivy League universities attract global talent. They attract the brightest and the best minds from around the world. And what's happening at these universities is something that will impact best talent globally going forward. Freedom of speech is not absolute. Neither is the clampdown against it. Both need to now have a moderation. And that moderation is essentially what will define Trump administration's dealings with these Ivy League universities and campuses going forward. They want to attract the best talent, but they also want to attract federal funding. And that fine line between what is acceptable and what cannot be in the garb of freedom of speech is essentially going to test the Trump administration. And on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back with more news, including specifically the latest unfolding between US and China when it comes to the tariff war. It's now all about Boeing jet deliveries, which have taken a hit because the tariff war has just been escalated. More on that after this break.
With retirement round the corner, I want to spend more time with my family and less time worrying about the numbers. Which reminds me.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote.
No problem. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. UK residents aged 50 to 80 are guaranteed to be accepted. Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000.
And that money could help with funeral costs or even as a gift for the grandkids. I'll do it.
Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
You got them all right. That's amazing.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team on 0800 977 5808 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
This is an important message for people living with diabetes from people living with diabetes.
When I was experiencing the symptoms of diabetes, I didn't know what was going on.
You go on the internet and it's full of horror stories.
I didn't understand about carbs, I didn't understand about blood glucose levels.
That's why the support I get as a Diabetes UK member is so important.
You can become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month. When you do, you'll receive a practical guide specific to your type of diabetes and a copy of Balance magazine 4 times a year. Plus, you'll help support research that could lead to better treatments for all types of diabetes.
As members, we're all working it out together.
Call 0800 144 5410 or go online to become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month. Join us now because membership can help you learn to live better with diabetes.
I'll fix him, love. Poor pet. Just shows you never know what's going to happen. Which reminds me, I need to protect the life we've built. That's why I'm looking into smart family life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote, please.
OK. You can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000, depending on your age. If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought. And it could help my husband with the mortgage.
Just like families, not all life insurance is the same. That's why we offer the Smart Family Guarantee.
That's good to know.
You'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cash back on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback. Plus, you'll also get your choice of a £125 gift card.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 5753 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
China has delivered what may be another blow to the American aerospace giant Boeing. Why? Because the tariff war between US and China is escalating. How is that? Well, China has halted all new jet purchases amidst the escalating trade war with Trump 2.0. The 179 Boeing aircraft scheduled for delivery by 2027 now stands in limbo because China has suddenly put a freeze on this, which could cost billions of dollars. Beijing's directive also bans US aircraft parts, putting pressure on the Chinese carriers and sparking fears of soaring maintenance costs. Meanwhile, Boeing shares plummeted 3% in pre-market trading. The move follows President Trump's latest round of punishing tariffs over 145% on Chinese goods. Remember, there's been a 90-day pause for everybody else except China. In retaliation, China increased its tariffs to 125%, and then it came out with an aviation strike. The turbulence may not end here. The Trump administration has opened new national security investigations into semiconductors and pharma when it comes to China, hinting at more tariffs, more escalation, more trade wars between the world's largest and second largest economy. As the US and China dig in, a $650 billion trade relationship now is at the brink of it. And Sanjay Lazar, who's an aviation expert, joins me to talk more about the impact this could have on the sector. Sanjay, now this is a very important development simply because these are very large deliveries that now stand in limbo. While the trade war continues, help us understand the impact this could have on the aviation landscape if the Boeing deliveries actually do not happen.
Good evening, Gaurie. Thank you for having me on your show. Yes, China has just struck back to the US and said that Boeing deliveries should stop. As you rightly pointed out, about 179 aircraft are pending delivery between 25 and 27. Now, the important thing here is China is actually the second largest outside of the United States, customer for Boeing. And though the figures don't actually show, at one point when the MAX issue had hit the world, almost 25% of all aircraft out of Boeing were going to China. So this is really going to impact China in the long term for parts, and it's going to shake up Boeing. On the flip side, there is a positive side to it because Indian carriers are hungry for aircraft, and perhaps they could work out a good deal with Boeing for these 170 or 180 odd aircraft that are available.
It's a large deal, isn't it? It's a large deal. But do you think this is posturing? While of course the Boeing shares have taken a hit, these are very large orders that get decided much in advance. They don't just change suddenly at the drop of a hat. Do you think this is just posturing ahead of the two sides meeting to possibly bring down some of these trade tensions?
Well, it's anyone's guess, to be frank, whether it's pure posturing, because I can see both sides hardening. I don't see any relaxation from either side. The Americans are very serious about what they're doing. And China also has COMAC, its own aircraft manufacturer, and they will encourage them. Let's also remember that, Air India Express has also got a number of aircraft that were supposed to be delivered to China last year and this year. And Air India had got Aeroflot aircrafts, the Airbus 350s, also which were cancelled. So it's not completely out of the picture that some of these may get cancelled. 10, I think, were to be handed over in the next week or 2 weeks, and if the payments are complete. So that will be the true, proof of the pudding. If those deals go through, then we'll know that, this is just posturing. But also the other thing is Ryanair. Michael O'Leary has just gone on to say that if tariffs stay on, and Ryanair is another big consumer for the Boeing aircrafts, they might postpone their 25, 30 aircraft, which they're expecting at the end of this year, next year until tariff.
Very quickly, sir, which is that the impact this will have on the aviation sector from spiraling costs point of view for Indian sector, very quickly.
Well, it's really not going to spiral costs for the Indian sector, so to speak. It's going to hurt China because China has over 1,000 Boeings currently in operation across all its 3-4 airlines. And they're going to face, some pain because if the parts are more expensive, it's going to be more difficult. I think India just needs aircraft, and we're going to lap it up.
Okay, so that's a positive tide to end this on. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me. Shifting focus now to tensions that are simmering in Western Europe and Israel as Benjamin Netanyahu and his son unleash a fiery rebuke of French President Emmanuel Macron. You don't see that every day, but that's what one saw on social media because of Macron's push to recognize a Palestinian state. Macron, speaking on French television, announced plans to recognize Palestine by June, hoping to inspire peace through reciprocal recognition by Israel. But his words sparked fury across Israel and an explosive response online. Netanyahu Jr. didn't hold back, accusing France of neo-imperialism and mocking its overseas territories. On your screens are that Twitter exchange that took place between the two. In fact, Netanyahu's son even confused French Guyana with the French Guinea. Netanyahu stood firmly behind his son, calling Macron gravely mistaken and slamming the idea of a Palestinian state as a threat to Israel's very survival. Citing silence from Palestinian leaders after the 7th of October Hamas assault, Netanyahu accused France of dangerous double standards, demanding don't lecture us on peace while ignoring your own colonial realities. In 2025, The Sound of Music comes with a new price, viewers, and it's being paid in installments. Yes, you heard it right. With general admission tickets topping $600, over 60% of Coachella attendees this weekend didn't pay up front. They paid in installments. A trend once reserved for college loans, now being used to finance fun. A $50 down payment secures entry to the desert dream. Travel, hotels, food, well, you talk about thousands more adding up. Marketing. Not about music anymore, it's about affordability, responsibility later. Once young Americans saved for education, and now they budget for entertainment. It's a new trend that has started, a wristband and a payment plan. That's what the model is. From 12-hour parking chaos to soaring ticket costs, Coachella's transformation mirrors America's own, where lifestyle is a luxury, debt is the price of participation. In the age of buy now, pay later, even memories, viewers, come with a payment plan, or so it seems. Aarti Rajaratnam joins me to talk more on this. Aarti, it's not a very happy trend simply because one would see that normally you wouldn't like to have EMIs for something like this, but well, I guess it's when it's about Coachella, there are no rules in the rule book, is it?
I really don't think it's just the Coachella or any of these things. Ultimately, I think it's about a generation that has its priorities mixed up. Their generation, for example, has become extremely visual. So they need to be seen in the right places. They need to be seen with the right people doing the right things. And they need to somehow post it on social media, gather that attention and things like that. So an EMI, particularly the installment plans, were for things like homes, which led to security, things like education that made you employable, made you plan for the future and things like that. Not for something so short-lived. So somewhere I have a feeling that the entire generation has started disintegrating priorities. I think we need to get back there. Though it's entertainment and it's a lot of fun and everything, if you took a concert in India for that matter, I do have to tell you here that many of the parents are probably footing the bill there, and they are probably doing the EMIs and everything instead of the adolescents, because our teenagers stay with their parents till they're married technically. So I really don't want to blame only their teenagers. Overall, I feel that this fear of missing out aspect is...
This is really the flip side of social media at the end of the day, because it's social media really dictating what you want to do with your lives.
It's not social media per se, but the fact that the entire world has become very visual right now. And when I say that, it's not just social media. It's about being seen. Even language and everything has stunted. We've started using shorter forms of everything. So I think when, your entire nervous system is being ruled by something different from what it was probably even 15 years back or 20 years back, it is. So it's not just social media, I would say, but the entire perception of the nervous system of how the world is. So that's where I would give you a technical side to this whole this chaos that's happening across the globe.
And American consumption and American consumerism anyway has been at the forefront of how the world deals with consumption patterns, isn't it? Because they really set the trend for the world to follow.
Not anymore. I think not anymore. Probably even about 5 years back, consumer trends were set by the US. But overall now, if you notice, it is moving back towards Asia. and a lot of trends are originating in Asia. So I wouldn't say it's just America. It is across the globe. And also the world has shrunk, right? When you look at connectivity, we're connected all across. So I think it would be very myopic to say that America, decides any of these trends. But yes, across the globe, entertainment has taken over and people have forgotten their priorities over a period of time.
And very quickly, Aarti, I'm running out of time, which is that this is specifically about Coachella, but do you think that's really the larger trend here that we're discussing, which is entertainment comes first, maybe responsible expenses come later?
See, the teenage brain is something that's driven by what's called the striatum, which is the risk-taking part. So all of these things come under actually risky behavior because it's quick returns in terms of the reward mechanism in the brain. Unlike, saving up for the future, which is a very responsible habit forming. So I think overall, what I would really add to this whole discussion today between you and me is the fact that we need to start realizing that this is going to be a very dangerous trend going forward. So it's time to, rethink our parenting, rethink the way we are dealing with entertainment and education and priorities.
Aarti, I'll leave it there. All I can say is my young colleagues who helped me put this show together would probably say responsibility and Coachella don't go together. On that note, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching this edition of India Global with me, Gaurie Dwivedi.
Bingo lovers, it's time for a close encounter with Bingo Aliens. Visit bingoaliens.com/bingo for a cosmic range of bingo games. 75-ball bingo, even 90-ball bingo. All from a galaxy far away, direct to you. Taking bingo to another dimension at bingoaliens.com/bingo.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
It feels good knowing that your future's in hand. Evlo can offer you a loan from £1,000 to £15,000, whether it's for home improvements, new appliances, a car, or for some of life's big moments. So even if you've had problems with credit before, Evlo looks beyond your credit score and always takes a case-by-case approach. Visit evlo.co.uk to get your conditional decision in minutes. Evlo, your future in your hands.
We know that living with diabetes can make daily life a challenge, and we're here to help.
I felt very low with the diagnosis and very lonely as well and embarrassed.
I think people don't necessarily realise the impact that being diabetic can have on you and the amount of extra decisions you have to make a day through carb counting every single thing you eat.
Day-to-day living with diabetes is really difficult. So Diabetes UK has made my life easier every day.
If you're struggling with the everyday challenges diabetes can bring, maybe it's time to become a Diabetes UK member. Call 0800 035 7601 or go online to become a member. And for just £3 a month, you'll get a welcome pack and a practical guide tailored to your type of diabetes and a copy of Balance magazine 4 times a year.
Balance magazine has been very good in giving me tips to manage my diabetes on a day-to-day basis.
Plus regular email updates with the latest diabetes news and special discounts.
One of the things I was recommended to do was exercise. What motivated me was my love of dance, and I got that back.
Join a community that really understands. Call 0800 035 7601 or go online to become a member for just £3 a month.
I would recommend Diabetes UK to anyone with diabetes. Join up, become part of a community, get that support that you need.
You ever thought about yours?
Funeral? Yeah.
Flowers, service.
Everyone there. The more the merrier.
Even your axe, Mark? It sounds a bit mad, but I think I want to be buried with these.
Scatter you where?
I think here.
It's your day. You have what you want.
What about you with your ex, Sue? Which one?
Start your plans. Talk to Co-op Funeral Care.
For Monu, every step is agony. But he's forced to carry heavy loads and bricks up narrow, steep flights of stairs, hour after hour, day after day. Life can be cruel and short for hard-working donkeys like Monu. With little food, water, or rest, they must keep going no matter what. Crude harnesses cut into their flesh. Horrific wounds and injuries go untreated. And when they've given all they can, many will simply be abandoned. You could help us treat more sick and injured donkeys. We won't stop until each one has a good life. But we can't do it without you. So please call 0800 035 9305 or text STEP 6 to 78866 and give £2 a month. Your help will be the first step towards a better life for brave donkeys like Monu.
Remember those nights we didn't take off our makeup? Our skin does. Lucky I've got this new night serum then.
New No. 7 Future Renew Night Serum with Night Active Peptidology works with your skin to reverse visible signs of skin damage while you sleep. Save £10 on new No. 7 Future Renew Night Serum.
Hello and welcome to the Southern View. I'm Veera Raghav. What's lined up on the show this evening, including the strong political undercurrents in Karnataka over the socio-economic survey. But first, let's take you through the headlines we're tracking this hour. Sonia and Rahul Gandhi named in the Enforcement Directorate charge sheet in the high-profile National Herald case, which has seen a sharp political exchange. Next hearing on the 25th of April. India becomes the first major market to shake off the shock of Trump tariffs. Indian markets recover losses made post-Trump's tariff announcements. Both Sensex and Nifty close in confident greens today. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin launches another offensive against the centre, forms a committee to study ways to protect state autonomy and rights. BJP calls it a political stunt. Well, first up this evening to our special focus, the deep cast political fault lines in Karnataka Congress and the state's polity in general seem to be opening up as the state cabinet gets set to discuss the controversial and decade-old socio-economic survey findings. The survey is before the state cabinet and will be discussed on Thursday. But Deputy Chief Minister and State Congress President D.K. Shivkumar, who's from the OBC Vokkaliga caste, has called for a meeting of Congress's Vokkaliga MLAs to discuss the issue this evening. The religious and political leadership of the dominant Lingayat sect and OBC Vokkaliga community have opposed the release of the survey findings, declaring the survey itself unscientific. Remember, of the 137 Congress MLAs, more than 55 are from these two caste blocks, sect blocks, more than 22 from the Vokkaliga caste alone. Shivkumar has in the past categorically opposed the survey, and a meeting of several Veerashaiva Lingayat leaders has also been taking place in the state parallelly. The BJP state president B.Y. Vijayendra, who's from the Lingayat sect, has also opposed the survey findings. The survey puts the proportion of the two dominant groups at much lesser than what has been claimed. It shows the Veerashaiva Lingayats as 11% and Vokkaligas as 10.29% of the state's population, and also recommends increase in reservations for backward castes from 32 to 51%. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, though, represents a conglomeration of other backward classes termed as Ahinda, which is considered a political counter to forces of the Vokkaliga caste and the Lingayat sect dominant in the state. He wants the survey findings to be made public. The question really is if D.K. Shivkumar's meeting is opening up fault lines in the Congress and in the state. All that is being closely watched. So what is the political consequence of the fault lines? Remember, the BJP too has tried to sidestep the survey findings. We'll try and play the reactions as well as my colleague Deepak Bopanna's report in a bit. But joining me this evening, Sadashiv Shivanna of the Congress, Ashok Gowda of the BJP, and noted cephalogist and Karnataka observer Sandeep Shastri. Before I get to the two politicians on the panel, Dr. Sandeep Shastri, explain the context of the opposition to this socio-economic survey, which we've discussed now for the last 10 years. Why is there a reluctance from the dominant groups, from the Lingayat and the Vokkaliga castes, for the release of the survey findings and to the survey itself? Just put this in context for us before we get to the politicians on the panel.
If you look at Karnataka politics, the Vokkaligas and Lingayats are seen as the dominant caste. In every assembly, they have accounted together for more than 50% of the MLAs, irrespective of which political party has come to power. Now, such a scenario, when a caste census seeks to declare these two castes, which have been seen as the dominant caste, as being only 21% of the state's population, it automatically puts the power of these two dominant castes on the back foot. The two groups which have enjoyed more than half the strength in the House, which have found more than half of the cabinets in the state, you now put them in a category where they are less than or just about 20% of the state's population. It automatically is going to change the dynamics of politics in the state. Also remember, Viran, the Vokkaligas and Lingayats have always made sure that they are considered as backward castes. They have always been part of the backward castes, irrespective of which committee looked into the composition of the backward caste. Therefore, we always refer to the non-dominant backward caste, which means all the backward castes minus the Lingayats and the Vokkaligas. And that is what the survey says accounts for a large chunk of the population. I must hasten to add, the non-dominant Cs are by themselves not a single group. They represent different caste groups which do not have much in common. While Siddaramaiah represents the Ahimsa forces, within those forces itself there are divisions. Our past studies have found that the Congress has largely been seen as a party which has